Hello guys, this is the-epiphany. In today's video I'm going to be showing you a tutorial on how to play the Osamodas' whip class. I've been waiting to do this video for a while now, but 2 days ago Osa's had a pretty big nerf, so I wanted to wait until after that to make this video. I want to draw your attention to a video that I made last year at the 2.46 update. This was before the Osas were hugely changed. This video is no longer usable because basically all the spells have changed and they're all different. So this video, I'm just going to leave it here for historical reasons. It also happens to be the video that I have the most views on in my channel. But speaking of 2.54 update, the basic thing you need to understand is Osa's charges, and hopefully by the end of today you'll be able to understand that. I'm also going to be explaining which spells I use the most and why I use them, so you get a good understanding, from an advice point of view here. Also, I will be only doing the intelligence spells, intelligence summons, namely the Wyrmlings, and the strength spells and strength summons, namely the Gobbles. The reason I'm doing this only is because I'm not an expert with the chance and agility spells. I don't think that they're as good as intelligence and strength are in terms of PvP, 3v3 and 1v1 Colosseum. That's why I'm going to do intelligence and strength spells only. So I'm going to start off by explaining the charges and how to get the charges basically. Now when we talk about charges, you need to cast certain spells to gain a specific charge for that element. So if you cast an intelligence spell, you gain a Wyrmling charge. Cast a strength spell, you gain a Gobble charge, and with those charges it allows you to summon different creatures. The general rule is charge number 1, you will be able to summon a Melanic summon, which is your main summon for dealing damage. I'm going to show that later on. Charge number 2 will give you an Albino, and charge number 3 will give you a colored one. So the reason it's colored is because it's different for each class. For Wyrmling, it's a red Wyrmling. For Gobble, it's chestnut Gobble. For Chance, it's I think it's slimy. And for agility, it's podgy. So I'll be showing you those summons after as well. So the first thing we need to notice is that we have spells that are variants of each other. Dragonic is a free AP spell that is linear, and it essentially hits the target fire damage, and it essentially makes the target kind of like an Algonac's prey, where if you hit the target anymore after this spell has hit them, you gain 25% of the damage that is dealt. So if you use this spell on a target and then an Iope uses Ive's Wrath or something and does 1000 damage, then they're going to heal 250 HP. If you use it on an ally, it does nothing, but it does nothing, but then any additional healing on that ally afterwards is going to increase by 120%. Spark Melon is better than Dragonic in my opinion because it's not linear, and if you hit an enemy, it deals damage immediately. If you hit an ally, it heals immediately. If there is a Wyrmling, which is one of your summons within 2 cells of that enemy, then the damage on the enemy is increased. If it's within 2 cells of your ally, then the heals is increased. So in my opinion, this spell is better. Next, we have Flaming Crow, which is a 2 AP spell and does fire damage. It increases the Wyrmling charge, just like the previous spells did. And it will do a little amount of fire damage. The advantage of this spell is that if you hit something, it will increase the spell's range by 3. And you don't have to hit a target for it to increase. You can hit an enemy for it to increase. Now, you can hit the air, like just hit nothing for the range to increase. But if you hit the air, it doesn't increase the charge. So basically you're using it, on the air just to gain more range. And then you're going to be able to hit the enemy and so on. The variant is Crossgale, which is an extremely high fire damage dealing spell, but it's hard to pull off because it hits diagonally only, and you need to have a Wyrmling that is in the area of effect for it to have anything to occur. That's the fact that it's a high damage dealing spell leads to the fact that if you use the spell Dragon's Breath, it is also a high fire damage dealing spell, and the range is modifiable. It's not diagonal, it's not linear, and yeah, it's pretty good. It does damage to enemies, and if you have an ally that is standing next to the enemy, it repels them by 1 square. Sometimes I forget this and I do it, and it's not good because the enemy was locked by my ally and I unlocked the enemy, so it's a bad mistake. If you use the spell on an ally, it heals them. Dragon's Heart is the variant of this. Is a free AP spell. I don't recommend this spell because it doesn't do damage. You use it on yourself and it essentially heals yourself and heal anyone that is next to you. You have the spell Spark Melon for healing allies for free AP already anyway, so you don't really need to use Dragon's Heart, so Spark Melon is better for healing allies. If you're like me, you can use a Brute Attacks Wand, which also heals quite nicely. So those are the main intelligence spells. Let me just demonstrate the spells first when it comes to in the fight, that is. So I use Dragon's Breath, Flaming Crow, and Spark Melon, obviously. Alright, so I'm going to use a sidekick to demonstrate. I'm just going to end a sidekick next to him, and that's good. Alright, so Dragon's Breath, like I said, if you use it on an ally, it's going to heal them. And it also pushes anyone that is next to the ally away, like that. Obviously, the Astrib Knight did not get healed because it's obviously full HP. Let me just hit it a bit. Alright, I'll go back next to the target. Now if I use Dragon's Breath, it'll heal 146 on the ally. Now if I use Dragon's Breath on an enemy, it'll deal damage, and it pushes any ally next to the enemy back 1 square. So that's what you got to keep in mind. Alright, now to demonstrate Flaming Crow, it has 5 range, 1 to 5. If you use it on the air or something, the spell will increase free range. The minimum range also increases, so now the range is 4 to 8. Use it again. Now the range is 7 to 11. And you can only use it 3 times a turn anyway. You only are allowed to use it once per target per turn. So let's say I use it on the Astrib Knight to increase my Wyrmling charge, which I'll explain later on. You can't use it again. Now we have, let's say, Spark Melon, which obviously heals the ally if you use it on an ally, and it'll damage the enemy if you use it on an enemy. So, yeah, if I had a Wyrmling out on the field that was within 2 squares of the enemy, it'll deal more damage. If I had a Wyrmling that was within 2 squares of the Astrib Knight, it'll heal the Astrib Knight more. Yep, so that's pretty much it. Yeah, you see, Dragon's Breath is actually pretty strong. They increase the damage after 2.54. So those are the intelligence spells. Alright, now what I'm going to do is explain the summoning slots. So the summoning slots are basically numbered spells. So we have first, we have fourth, we have second, we have fifth, we have third, we have sixth. Now that is obviously it's just numbered spells. They are basically summoning slots, and you notice there's only 6 of them. So that means the maximum number of class summons that you can summon is 6, and as opposed to the previous 2.46 update back here, there was no restriction on how many summons. You can even have 10 Gorballs, 10 identical Gorballs on the field at the same time. But here you cannot do that because you can only have 1 of each summon on the field at the same time. So 1 Melanic Wyrmling, 1 Albino Wyrmling, 1 Red Wyrmling, and so on. It is up to you how many of the summoning slots you use, because the variants of each of the slots are a useful spell in its own regard. The variant of first is Favoritism. Favoritism is a spell that reduces, firstly, it increases the summon's damage by 15% for 6 turns. And at the end of your turn, it also gives a damage reduction to the summon that you use Favoritism on, depending on how many other summons there are on the field. The more summons you have on the field, the lower the damage reduction is on this Favoritism summon, because that's only fair. However, if you have, let's say, if you read the description here, if you have 1 summon on the field, it'll gain a 40% damage reduction. If you have 2 summons, 25% damage reduction, and so on. Because Osas that play with little amount of summons, you know, they should have a higher benefit and higher ability to protect their summon, because they're playing with a little amount of summons, you know, like 1 or 2. As opposed to Osas that play with a lot of summons, they will, you know, have less protection because they have a lot of summons out. It's quite fair that Enkama developed it this way. I don't use this spell though, because I don't feel the need to increase, you know, the amount of the damage that my Wyrmlings do, because my Wyrmlings are mainly there to heal. They have some damage, but as an Osa myself that is intelligence, you probably are aware that I have high resistance, so I don't really need to deal that much damage. I usually play with damage dealers in my team anyway. Next we have Second, which is the variant of Natural Defense. Natural Defense basically makes the summon invulnerable for 1 turn. It only works with your summon, so if you use it on an ally summon, it will not work. The cooldown is 3 turns. That's pretty much it. I don't really like this spell either, because there's really no need to make your summon invulnerable. It's a summon. You know, it's unlikely it'll get targeted anyway, because people target the Osa, because if the Osa dies, then the summon dies. Next we have Third, which is the variant of Relay. This is a very nice spell because it gives 2 AP to a ally permanently, unless the summon dies. Let me explain what that is later on, after I introduce you the summons first. Yeah, but Relay essentially gives 2 AP to your ally. If the ally is within 5 squares of your summon, it will swap places with the summon. So basically it links your ally with the summon. If the ally is more than 5 squares away from the summon, it doesn't swap places, it just gives 2 AP to the summon, and that's it. This can be useful for positioning. You've probably seen me do it in Colo before, where I summon a chestnut gobble on the first turn, and then I summon it, you know, up ahead, and then I relay an ally so that they swap with the gobble, and then the ally will be ahead, and then the gobble will be back behind safety. It's a good way to rush, so that's why I use Relay. The 4th spell is the variant of Protective Balm. It basically just shields the summon. You know, I don't really like that, because there's really no need to shield your summon. If it dies, it dies, you know. That's pretty much it. There's no point really to need to shield your summon. Maybe if you play Agility Osa, then it'd be worth it to use this spell, because Agility summons are quite fragile. They also have no lock, so they can't lock enemies. Yeah. The variant of the 5th spell is High Energy Shot. I use High Energy Shot as well because it's useful. It gives a lot of MP and AP to the summon for the and damage inflicted as well. Increases the damage for 1 turn. But then the next turn it loses some of that buff. So yeah, on the 2nd turn it loses the buff. On the 3rd turn it has the same number of buff as on the 2nd turn. And in the 4th turn it's back down to the minimal. I'll demonstrate that later on as well. Lastly, the variant of the 6th spell is Animal Blessing. This spell, the caster gains 3 summoning charges in the element of the current charge. It's basically an emergency where if you want to reach your 4 out of 4 charges, I'm going to explain that later on, but really there's no need for this spell. So yeah. So as you know, there are 6 summoning slots and 6 variants of those slots. I use 4 slots here, and the two variants I use are high energy shot and relay. Okay, time for me to demonstrate the intelligence spells, intelligence summons I mean. Okay, so I'm going to use my Astrip Knight again. I'm also going to demonstrate how relay works as well in this fight. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate strictly the intelligence summons first, and then the next fight I will demonstrate the strength summons, which are the Gorbals, as I mentioned. Right now, when you enter the fight, you are in what's called an uncharged state, which means you have no state on you. You have this little thing on your head. Now, if you summon any of these slots, it'll come up with a thing called a no formo. What a no formo is basically, you know, it's a thing that will change appearance and become a summon at the end of your turn. So let me show you right here. If I pass my turn right now, you're allowed to choose any of the 4 types of classes that you want to become. So I'll choose a Wyrmling. It will become the first state Wyrmling, which is a Melanic Wyrmling. The Melanic Wyrmling, like I said before, is the main Wyrmling for damage dealing, because Melanic is damage dealing, and then you have the second charge, which is Albino, which is a mix, and then the third charge, which is a colored one, so red Wyrmling for intelligence. So the first thing you need to notice here is that if you were to do what I did there, we have you know, I used the first spell, so I got a no formo, and I basically got a Melanic Wyrmling by choosing to get a Melanic Wyrmling. Now that, if I use the first spell again, it's going to move the Melanic Wyrmling anywhere across the map. So if I run and then I use a spell, I can use resummoning spell that costs 2 AP to do so. So that allows me to move the summon across the map like that. Now, speaking of the summon, specifically we have 3 types of spells. Inferno, which basically does damage around you like this. You can only use it once, and then we have Diagonal Fire, which is Diago Fire, like this. Now, the advantage of Diago Fire is that it heals any allies that are standing next to the target. So if I use Diago Fire now, it'll technically heal me, but unfortunately I'm full HP, so you won't see the heal. Yeah, and then you have Drago Fire, which is linear. This spell is stronger than Diago Fire, so you want to use Drago Fire linear first. And you only use the diagonal spell if you want to heal an ally who is next to the target. Diago Fire can only be used twice a turn per enemy. Drago Fire is also twice a turn per enemy. Okay, so obviously I am at the first state. Now, no, I'm not at the first state, sorry. I'm uncharged still, as you have that, you know, light blue symbol above the head. Now I'm going to introduce some other spells that I didn't mention yet. We have Puncture here, which is the spell that everyone uses. No one uses Beastly Balance. I'm not going to explain that. But basically Puncture, if you use it on a summon of you, you're going to gain a charge depending on what summon it is. So since it's a Wyrmling, I gain 1 charge, and you see this little circle here is a clockwise direction of 1, you know, 1/4. So now I'm at Wyrmling charge number 1. Other spells that I didn't mention yet. Wait, hold on. So let's Diago Fire this thing. Diago Fire. Okay. Other spells that I didn't mention yet are Spiritual Leash, which basically revives the last dead ally, but you can't use it because obviously no ally has died. Now this is the major nerf. When you revive the ally, they basically get they're full HP, but they lose half of their AP and MP and Vitality infinitely. So if the person is 10 AP, 6 MP, they're gonna have 5 AP, 3 MP. Now unfortunately, if they have an odd number of AP, it's gonna be rounded down. So if they have 11 AP, they're gonna get 5 AP, not 6. If they have 5 MP, they're going to get 2 MP, not 3. So it's rounded down, unfortunately. Next we have we have replacement, which basically replaces the summon, and they gain a lot of buff. So let's try it now. So they gained a bit of vitality because, you know, if we read the spell, the more the summon was damaged, the more, you know, bonus vitality they'll get. So if the summon was nearly dead, they'd get a lot of vitality and be back to full HP. So it's kind of like an emergency to save your summon's life, which obviously is why you do not need protective balm or natural defense, like I said before. Yeah. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is demonstrate, you know, Whelming Charge number 2. Which is, you know, obviously summons an albino Whelmling. You're allowed to summon any slot you want, but I chose, you know, second because it's, you know, it lines up with the fact that it's second. Okay, we have a spell, Dragon Conflag, which cannot be used until the second turn. We have Dragon Inversion, which if you position an ally next to the target, you use it on an ally. Okay, hold on. So, inversion here. You use it on an ally, it's going to heal the ally, and it damages any enemy that is next to the enemy. Any enemy that is next to the ally. Alright, now, the last spell is the standard fire damage dealing spell, which you use on an enemy and heals any allies that are next to the enemy. The spell isn't that strong because it is, you know, albinos are supposed to be weaker. Now, the spell Conflag is the strongest spell, and it's a cone shaped. So if you have allies that are standing in or this position here, or any enemies in this position, it's going to heal the allies but damage the enemies in that position. The spell is strong as well. As you see, 392. It can only be used once every 2 turns though. See, so there's a cooldown right now. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is talk about the third and final charge. So let me just heal the thing up. Alright. The good thing to do is to use, you know, a mix of spells to get your charge up. So Flaming Crow on there, then I punctured a Whelmling that got me an extra charge, and we have Flaming Crow. Obviously we can't use it again on the same target, so I'm going to use Spark Melon. Now I'm at the third charge where the thing is 3/4 of the way, and we notice that if we use a spell we can get a red Whelmling. Now to explain the spells here, we have one spell, the first spell which unbewitches 1 turn, and the third spell which heals allies. And there is also a second spell here which can only be used on the second turn and onwards. You can't use it on the first turn yet. The advantage of the second spell is that basically it unbewitches. So we use the first spell here, unbewitch 1 turn, and we use the second spell here, it unbewitches as well. So you can get a 2-turn unbewitchment in 1 turn. You notice that there was a straight line behind there because basically it just heals anyone that is in line with the target. It will unbewitch the target, and it will heal additionally anyone that is, you know, in the way. So obviously that's a very useful spell. Let me just finish that off. Yeah, so the free spells, the free summons are quite useful. Let me now demonstrate how the relay spell works. Oh, and high energy shot. Okay. So, firstly I'm going to charge up, summon a Whelmling. Now you notice the Whelmling is within 5 squares, so if I use relay on the enemy, on the target, it's going to swap with my summon. And now it's up to me to remember that this Astrub Knight is linked with the Melanic Whelmling, so the Astrub Knight will get 2 AP infinitely. If the summon dies, then the Astrub Knight will lose the 2 AP, but other than that it gets 2 AP for an infinite amount of turns. Now the other variant that I use, High Energy Shot. We use High Energy Shot on the Melanic Whelmling like this. Gains a lot of buffs, gains 3 AP, 3 MP. Now, it does an insanely amount of damage, you see right now, like up to 500, and this amount of buffs will only last this amount of turn. As you notice, it had 8 MP, 7 AP, so it's only good to use high energy shot on the turn that you want to be the most effective. It lost a bit of buffs, now it's down to 6 AP, 6 MP, and the damage is a little less, as you can see. Now, this third turn of its life, it has, third turn of the boss, it still has 6 AP, 6 MP. So the first turn it had the most, the second and third turn is the same. And now we are down to the fourth turn of high energy shot, where it's down to 5 AP, 5 MP, and only a 15% damage increase, and it lasts infinitely. So that's pretty much it for high energy shot. Another thing I want to mention is that if you have multiple allies in your team, it is possible to relay a different type, a different summon with a different thing. So let's say I get an albino out here. Alright, hold on a sec. Alright, so I got an albino out here. Let's say I summon a chafer or something. Treat the chafer as an ally. I can use relay on the ally and it will swap with a different type of, a different summon. So now the chafer is linked with the albino and the Astrib Knight is linked with the Melanic. And they're going to have 2 AP infinitely unless the summon they're linked with is dead. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, so those are the intelligence spells. I'm going to go through them again at the end. But now I'm going to introduce the strength spells. We have several strength spells here. First thing is Fossil. Fossil is a 3 AP spell and it rapes MP. And it also increases the summoning charge. If you use it on an ally, it increases their lock. So it's quite useful, you know, if you want to increase the lock of a Sacri or something. Sedimentation rapes power and does more damage. If I was a strength Osa, I would be using sedimentation because it's stronger and more useful. You know, raving power. That's what you want to do. You want to make enemies weaker. But as an intelligence Osa, I have Fossil because I use Fossil to increase the charge. And it basically, at the start of the turn, I want to get up to charge number 3 of Gorbel to summon a Chestnut Gorbel. So that's why I use Fossil. But as a strength Osa, I will definitely be using sedimentation. Speaking of strength Osa, I'm actually trying to get my set together. I landed a very nice Fallen's the Shield yesterday. 2% air resistance, 1 summons, so I'm going to be using that for my strength Osa set, which I'll get, I'll finalize that soon. Next we have Crackler Punch or Constriction. Now, I use Crackler Punch in the intelligence set is basically to deactivate Ivory Dofus if we have multiple enemies in an area of effect that have Ivory buff on, 50% sustain. And also to detect an invisible SRAM because it attacks in an area of effect. This spell also increases summoning charge. However, for a strength Osa, it'd be better to use Constriction because it heals, it attacks the enemy and it heals you. It's pretty much your only mechanism of healing as a strength Osa, because obviously if you're int, then you have a lot of int Osas have a lot of you know, wormlings to heal them, but strength does not, so Constriction would be more appropriate for a strength Osa. The last spell we have is Woolly Sledgehammer or Gorbel Fleece. Now these two spells, you know, it's obviously up to you, but as an intelligence Osa, I use this spell because it's 2 AP, it's easy. Its low AP cost allows me to charge a Gorbel charge easily. You use it once on the enemy, it basically does nothing. But if you use it twice on the enemy, that enemy is going to steal 1 MP from you. So it's kind of good for buffing an ally. You know, like I use it on the first turn of the fight. The ally will gain MP from me, so that's good for them because I don't really do much on the first turn anyway. Gorbel Fleece is 4 AP, and basically what it does, if there are more enemies than allies in the area, the allies gain a shield for each ally in the area. So Wait, that doesn't sound right. If there are more enemies in the ally than allies in the area, allies gain shield. Oh, okay. So that's not much then, because 50% of the level to shield is only 100 shield. Gives a charge if an enemy is hit and a second charge if an ally is hit as well. So this spell is kind of like the variant of cross scale, where you can charge multiple times in one turn. But it seems pretty difficult to pull off because you need a lot of enemies in the area of effect. So I wouldn't recommend that anyway. So those are the spells. But obviously, since I'm an into OS, I'll be playing from an intelligence point of view, and I'm going to put some summons up. Okay. Now, the first thing I do at the start of the fight is to double Woolly Sledgehammer my ally. And that will increase my Gorbel charge to 2. And if I use Fossil, that'll be Woolly charge number 3. No, not Woolly charge number... Gorbel charge number 3. So now that I'm at the 3rd charge, I can summon a Chestnut. A Chestnut, I will link with the ally a relay. So now that the ally has 2 AP. Let me just show you what the spells do. Alright, one spell here, we have Woolly Focus. One range is basically rapes, 35% range damage and 25% melee resistance, which is nice. And we also have a spell here that gravity states the ally or the enemy. But then it says Heavy Fleece. There is a Heavy Fleece state. As you can see. That means you cannot use the gravity spell on the same person 2 turns in a row. So if I use the gravity spell right now on here, it does nothing. It doesn't gravity state. You can't gravity the same thing 2 turns in a row because that's broken. We also have a spell which is grazing. It gives 520 shield. Like that. Now you notice it's 520 shield, but one thing you need to notice is that if the ally is next to an enemy, it will actually give 725 shield. So it's quite nice, and you can use it twice a turn for 2 allies as well. So that's how it is. Yeah, that's the Chestnut Gorbel. Now let's have a look at the first charge for Gorbel charge, which is a Melanic. I'm going to high energy shot that as well, because I feel like it. A Melanic is the main summoning form. Now we have Melanic Bite or an Attraction. The Attraction spell will attract the target and hit in the same turn. Now you cannot use Woolly Attraction in the same turn as well, because you can only attract one thing. Now, as you notice, we had 2 attraction spells. Now the reason why we have that is because we have one that can attract an ally and not do any damage. That's for attracting allies. This second one here, Deluxe Woolly Attraction, will attract and do damage. So, you know, you have 2 types of attractions. It's up to you. If you are dealing with an enemy, then you'd use the attraction spell to do damage, and then you would Gorbel Bite twice, or Melanic Bite twice, yeah? Because the Woolly Attraction is purely for allies, that is. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you is the charge number 2. So 2 charges here, and then I summon. It's called an Albino Gorbel, and what the Albino Gorbel does is has 3 spells. One is Spit in an area of effect, which basically rapes AP parry. Now the reason why is because we have Albino Bite, and this Albino Bite does only AP raping, and it AP rapes 2 turns, dodgeable. Let me show you that again. Albino Bite rapes 2 AP only. If you attack again with this spell, it will do damage, okay? So basically the Albino can only attack it can only attack once, because the first one is going to AP rape, and then the second one will do damage. There's no point in using high energy shot because, you know, they can only attack once anyway, because albinos are usually for, you know, some sort of special effects. As you know, the albino wormling is basically a mixture of heals and hits, so that's why. The last thing I want to show you is the final spell for the albino, which is early bite. So basically, oh wait, I ran off, but basically it attracts you towards the target. So okay, I was off there, but let me show you again. You know, as you can see, my inexperience already. Okay, so it's a cooldown. So basically, when you use it on the enemy, it will attract you towards the enemy, but it doesn't do any damage anyway. Wait, cast the oh, it does do damage. It does do damage. It casts the it does do damage. Okay, so it attracts you towards the target, and it also does damage. So that's quite convenient, I suppose. Okay, so we use the attraction spell towards the enemy, and it's supposed to, yeah, so it attracts you towards the enemy, and then it rapes 2 AP. That allows you to use the actual gobble bite twice, if you had the AP, of course. So the albino, you can either albino bite once, which AP rapes, and then you albino bite again, which which does damage. Or you can use the attraction spell towards the enemy, which AP rapes first, then albino bite, which does damage. There we go. Yeah, so that's pretty much the Osa spells. Obviously I'm not in a strength set, so my damage wasn't that good with the spells. But overall, the intelligence spells are weaker than the intelligence spells are weaker than the strength spells, summons as well. Okay, so those are the strength and intelligence spells and their summons for Osa class. Okay, so far I've showed you guys the intelligence spells, intelligence summons, strength spells, strength summons. What I haven't shown you yet is positioning of summons, cooldown of summons, and re-summoning and all that, you know, gypsy stuff with regards to the summons. So I'm going to attack a monster and basically show you my routine in Colosseum and how it works. Okay, so let's get the Astrub Knight here. The very first thing I'm going to do is basically get my Gobble charge to number 3, and then use relay on the ally. In this case is an Astrub Knight. And then what I do with the chestnut is just shield, you know, 2 allies, 520 shield. Alright, the next thing I do is get up a Wormling. I high energy shot the Wormling, and then I try to get a different charge, an albino up. By doing so, I use 1 AP to puncture the Wormling to get 1 AP, to get 1 charge, and then I have 2 AP Flaming Crow. I have to Flaming Crow an ally in this case because there's no other enemy to hit. I already Flaming Crowed the pouch first, so yeah, Flaming Crow an ally. And now I use a slot for the albino. So that's how I get 2 summons out in the second turn of the fight. Obviously, if there was another enemy, I would Flaming Crow that enemy instead of my Astrub Knight. And then I just do damage. Double hit linear, and then we do 1 hit diagonal, because that's the way to do the highest damage, basically. And then with this, I shield things. Okay. On the third turn of the fight, it really depends. Usually I would get a Wyrmling up, a red Wyrmling up if I feel the need. However, sometimes I do not, because firstly it's the third charge, so it takes it's quite difficult to build up. But the reason for that is because I want to show you something else. What happens when your summons die? Okay. So let's kill the Melanic. Alright, so as you can see right now, I'm in the second charge, and I have a corresponding with the summon slots 1st, 2nd and 6th here. 4th one is uncastable because I'm in the 2nd charge. Technically, if it didn't allow me, then I would summon, if it didn't prevent me, then I'd be summoning another albino Wyrmling. But what we can do is move summons across the map. Like this, it costs 2 AP. Yeah? So if you just move a summon across the map, it costs 2 AP. Before the update, before 2.54 came out, you were allowed to move multiple summons across the map and it cost you 2 AP each time. However, now, if you move one summon across in a turn, it costs 2 AP. If you move another summon, it costs an additional AP. So now it's going to cost 3 AP to move that. And now if we move another one, it's going to cost 4 AP. See? So they basically made it a bit harder for us because it was absolutely broken being able to move summons across the map. Also, I need to mention that if the summon is in gravity state, you cannot move them across the map because they're in gravity. Okay, now I'm at the 3rd state, so the remaining slot I have is the 4th summon, which is why if I use that, then I can summon a Wyrmling. Now, if we notice here, what happens if a summon dies? Alright, what happens if a summon dies? So we notice in this case here, the Melanic Wyrmling is the one that died. So whatever slot that it was the Melanic Wyrmling on, we get 1 turn cooldown because the Melanic Wyrmling can be formed by 1 charge. So the cooldown of the spell, of the summon that died, corresponds to the charge of the summon, or the type of summon. So if, so obviously 1 turn's been, so now this is castable again. Let's see if we kill an albino. If we kill an albino Wyrmling, it's the 2nd slot, which is the one that I summoned the albino in. It's going to have a 2 turn cooldown because it's, an albino, which it takes 2 charges to form. Alright, now I'm going to kill the chestnut and we'll have a look there. Alright, so the chestnut is currently the 6th slot. So if we kill the chestnut, the cooldown is going to be 3 turns. The same goes for any summon that is of the 3rd charge. So it could be a Podgy Tofu, a red Wyrmling, summons that are from the 3rd charge, they're going to have a 6 turn cooldown. So, keeping in mind the cooldowns, it can be an advantage to us to have, okay, so in this fight, I had 3 Wyrmlings and a Gobble. That's because I had a total of 4 slots. Now, in Colo, you might have seen some Osas be able to summon a Melanic Wyrmling every turn. Now, that is true because it is possible. Now, I'll show you why. Alright, so right now no spells are on cooldown and I'm no charge. Let's have a look here. Alright, so I'm at the 1st charge. Summon a Melanic. Let's pass the turn for now. Alright, so we killed the Melanic. Oh, whoops. Wait, hold on. We killed the Melanic. That slot, the 1st charge, has... The 1st slot has 1 turn cooldown because a Melanic summon died. I got my charge up to 1 and I can summon a different Melanic. Let's, yeah, so I can summon a different Melanic by using a different slot. Let's kill that summon. Now, I can just get up a charge 1 and I can summon a different Melanic using a different charge, different slot, I mean. So that is an advantage of having multiple slots. If you want to play with one summon only, so Melanic, then that would be the right thing to do. You don't necessarily have to have 4 slots. Maybe like 2 or 3 will do. Because it allows you to re-summon immediately the following turn if your summon dies. Yeah, so that's basically it. My recommendation for Osamodas is to have 4 slots. Now, obviously, the more slots you have, the less buffs you can have. But it is crucial for an Osa to have 4 slots because they have the 3 Wormlings and a Chestnut Gobble out. It is a total of 4 summons. You also need to keep in mind, however, that if your summons die, you can have spare slots to make another summon. If you have the 4 slots and every single one of your 4 summons dies in the same turn, so the 3 Wormlings and the Chestnut Gobble, you will not be able to summon anything else until the cooldowns of the slots run out. So that's kind of like you know, a disadvantage of that, but it's not too bad. Yeah. Oh, and the final spell that I forgot to show is Crop. So let me do that now. Oh wait, actually I forgot some other spells as well, but hold on. Alright. The spell Crop, depending on your charge, will do something. So Wormling, charge number 1 is going to repel the caster by 2 squares. Wormling charge number 2 is going to repel by 3 squares, and Wormling charge number 3 will repel by 4 squares. So it's good because if we have a situation where let's say we're locked by someone that's standing between you and the wall, we use Crop on there. You know, let's say that this was a Sacri or something that had like 150 lock. I wouldn't be able to release or dodge, so I use Crop on that, and they can fling me back. The variant of Crop is Whip, I believe. It's not good because for Wormling it attracts allies in a line. You see, like if you just read it here, it says like some random effects. Attract for Wormling is attracting allies. The higher the charge, you know, the more it will attract, and it's just unnecessary in my opinion. Crop is more convenient in that case. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Okay, we also have, I know I'm not supposed to be explaining agility spells, but we also have a spell called Gamble here. Oh, I need to mention what happens if you're in a specific elemental charge and you use a different element. So I'm currently charge 1 for Wormling, and if I use a different charge, it'll get me to the same number charge of the different element. So it'll get me to it'll get me to Tofu charge number 1. But the reason why I wanted to show you that spell is because it's a good positioning spell. You know, it flings you over a target. It doesn't do damage to allies, but it does damage to enemies like this. You know, you teleport over. Alright, so obviously now that I'm in the 3rd charge of Tofu, if I summon something, it'll get you a Podgy Tofu. But if I want to go back to the intelligence charge, I can just use an intelligence spell, and it goes back to the 3rd charge of intelligence. It's the same number charge, it just changes the element of the charge. So the 3rd charge right now is the 3rd charge of Wormling. So if I summon something, it's going to summon a Wormling. Now in Colo, I used to be mistaken when I was inexperienced, when I can see, you know, because if you're playing versing an Osa, you don't actually see what charge they're in. You can only read the chat. I saw an Osa on the enemy team. He just used, he was an intelligence Osa. He just used an earth spell once. So it was like Woolly Sledgehammer. He just used it once and it got him to the third charge of Chestnut. For Chestnut. And then he summoned a Chestnut. And I thought to myself, how the hell is that possible? A Chestnut that is extremely broken, and all you need to do is use a 2 AP spell on the target and you can summon a Chestnut. Well, I was wrong because I didn't know he was in the third charge of Wormling already. So he used a Earth spell and it got him to Wormling. He got him to Gorbel charge number 3, which allowed him to summon a Chestnut. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. All these other spells are not important. Like I said, as an int Osa myself, I use the 3 int spells, these 2 Earth spells to charge my Wormling charge. And I use Gamble, which is symmetrical teleportation only. Those are only the 2, these are the only non-intelligent spells I use that are, somewhat useful to me. So that's what happens when you try to change elemental charges, okay? Okay, adding on to that, let's say I was on the first charge of Gorbel and I had a red Wormling out, or any Wormling. If I use the spell Puncture on the Wormling, it's going to change from the first charge to the first Wormling charge. So it's using Puncture increases the charge, just the same as using any other intelligence spell will increase the charge. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to be making a summary after this video. It's very important that you watch the summary because it summarizes everything I've said in this video. If you have any questions with regards to this video, please comment below, and I promise I will be answering every single comment in this comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, which probably will not be for a while because I've got a new part-time job, so I'm working.